Hi, this is Veno, and today we'll be facing birth and death in the walking of this interview. So, birth and death, the beginning and the end. A point that is certain for each human being in this world. We're born into this world, we live in this world, and we eventually die in this world. However, at the moment, this process of birth, life, and death is tied to and dependent on an internal and external system that we've accepted and allowed, created, designed, and manifested as ourselves. We're enslaved to our own creation of internal mind consciousness system and external world system, where literally birth, life, and death is dependent on one factor, that is money. And that one factor will determine each individual human being's experience within this process of birth, life, and death. And that not only goes for human beings, but also for the earth, nature, and the animal kingdom. Everything's determinant of their experience and process of birth, life, and death can be sourced to money, is totally, entirely dependent on money. Money is the light, the God of earth, that blind human beings to such an extent that they cannot even see, realize, and understand that it is in fact money that is the source that is currently keeping this reality bound to its manifested consequence in relation to each individual human being within who they are, as well as humanity as a whole, and the functioning of the world system in its entirety. I mean, this situation is equal to and one with our previous existence in heaven, with the white light as God being all around us, within and as the manifested interdimensional energetic force that sustained the existence of the beings, dimensions, heavens, and planes. Yet, no one realized or understood, in fact, that it is or was the one point that was enslaving us into separation, where we remained lost within our minds, that was, in essence, externalized into and as our own heavens, or ascension processes, etc. So, when one died, for those that followed into the heavens, you'd become trapped within an externalized, manifested representation of and as your primary definition within, as, and of your mind, consciousness system. You possessed yourself within, in and during your life experience on earth. And so your existence or experience within heaven was being possessed within and as an externalized, manifested representation of and as a part of and as one's mind consciousness system to which one defined oneself as within and as one's life experience on earth. And within that whole externalized self-representative enslavement, one was trapped within and enslaved to the white light as God, and no one ever woke up from this point of seeing, realizing, and understanding that one point to, as, and within which we all were enslaved to and possessed by. So literally, as above, so below, is in fact the reality of existence. Heaven and earth is one and the same. And we've changed heaven within and during the process with the portal to the point where heaven as it existed is in fact no more. And most of the beings that survived the process, so to speak, is now in the physical for the last phase in self-realizing in, as, and with the physical as the substance of manifestation that is the reality of equality and oneness. Therefore, what does bringing heaven to earth mean practically? Obviously, I'm not referring to heaven as it existed because it was in fact in the exact same state or situation as what earth is at this stage, being strapped within a point of possession that defined the totality of who they are within a white light as God, as the base manifestation that defined beings and their reality. Exactly the same as on earth, human beings trapped within a point of possession that defines the totality of who they are within a money system as God, as the base manifestation that defines human beings and their reality. In our process in heaven as the interdimensional existence, we redefined ourselves as heaven through and as the principle of equality and oneness, as what's best for all. And we practically walked the tools of self-forgiveness, self-honesty, self-corrective application, and we still do. So the redefinition of what heaven is stand within the principle of manifesting a living reality that is in fact best for all, which is equality and oneness, where all are in fact equal and one in all ways. Obviously, each interdimensional being that is here now, participating within this process as the last phase of Earth, is here because of who we are, within and through how we walked and continue to walk the process. Those that didn't make it, that is not here walking with, did it by their own volition, where in essence, separation, individualism, self-interest was more important than what's best for all as one as equal. But such a stand or acceptance and allowance cannot remain within the face of equality and oneness, because in equality and oneness, separation cannot and does not exist at all. And so anyone taking such a stand as manifested separation become non-existent, does not exist, and thus cannot be part of what is here as manifested equality and oneness. I mean, this is common sense. So, in bringing heaven to earth means to manifest a reality of equality and oneness here in and as this physical reality that obviously can only be done in and as this physical reality. And be practically lived through and as practical living, a real application. Many have created, designed, and manifested this alternate reality of a picturesque fantasy of heaven on earth, created within the realms of the mind. But the mind is not in reality, is not in the physical. Therefore, the only way to manifest a heaven that is in fact real is through the physical and not through the mind. So we've redefined ourselves as individuals and as an existence. Obviously, it all started with ourselves first, and then in the standing together with each one participating within the starting point of what's best for all, equal and one, we changed ourselves and so also our existence to the extent where heaven was no more. Obviously, in terms of the ultimate oneness and equality, we're not there yet. But in walking, applying, and living the principle, we've assisted and supported ourselves to be able to walk together in this process of self-realization, where we've gotten to the point of now having the abilities to stand equal to and one with the physical part of ourselves. We've walked our mind dimensional part of ourselves as heaven, And now we've got to face, stand up from, and walk through the physical manifested part of ourselves in taking responsibility for what is here as ourselves, in as and of this earth, to so complete the process of standing equal to and one with all, as everything of ourselves that we are in as and of this existence. So understand, equality and oneness is a process for all, individually and together. And now we're here on earth to assist and support with the process of bringing heaven to earth. Obviously not a separate manifested heaven, but the manifested living definition of what heaven was always meant to be or supposed to be. A manifested living existence where all, everything and everyone is in fact equal and one. That can live, share, express and experience ourselves and each other together for real. And again, which can only be done here in the physical, in reality that is real. So we're not heaven. Heaven as the actuality within equality and oneness. That is an existence manifested within and as a principle that is best for all, is what will be brought about by and through human beings of within and as this world, manifesting heaven on earth, walking the exact same process we are, stopping the existence of your own personal heaven as mind, changing self into a living principle of what's best for all, equal and one, become a living example in, as and with this physical, and so assist and support others to walk with, equal and one. And so, we change this existence through practical living, practivism, practically in, as and with breath in the physical, living the change of self as the world. Obviously, for us in the interdimensional existence previously to have changed for real, everything that we were in and out had to die, had to end, had to be no more. That part of ourselves in and out had to be let go of so completely for us to re-emerge and participate as individuals within a redefined principle that stand within the principle of what's best for all. And so, who we were together with heaven is no more. And we're here as individuals walking together. This is the same process each on earth face. Everything is already here. Everything is already here for us to effectively change ourselves and also this world. I mean, the most important point and source within it all is here, and that is ourselves. And we, within that one point of being here, already have the power, ability, and capacity to change this process of birth, life, and death. To stop ourselves from being enslaved in, as and to our own creation, and instead take responsibility for it and change ourselves as it. We're the source. The only source that can change ourselves and also this existence. I mean, have a look at us within the interdimensional existence. God didn't change us. We're the gods with the power to change ourselves in this existence. We're our own God, Jesus. We've been waiting for to change ourselves in this existence. We've in fact been waiting for ourselves all this time. So we're here to assist and support for those ready to hear that's already been assisting and supporting themselves out of and through the layers of mind possession, to walking the process of taking responsibility for oneself and one's own creation, and stopping, accepting and allowing the separation and enslavement from and towards one's own creation. Ourselves as God finally coming to earth, taking responsibility for our own creation, together with the Jesus within ourselves, saving ourselves from ourselves. Obviously, not happening or being quite as expected. So what I've been discussing or showing here thus far is how we're the point in this existence to bring forth and manifest change. And we can and will do it through redefining and actually, in fact, practically living the change of ourselves as this existence. For example, we've redefined heaven. We all now, and including yourselves, understand that bringing heaven to earth practically means two things. One, bringing oneself from heaven to earth, as one walk out of the mind consciousness system as one's own personal heaven, and ground oneself here in, as, and with the physical into and as reality. So, walking one's process through one's own dimensions, constructs, and systems, bringing all that self-separated self into and as the mind, bringing it back to self here in, as, and with the physical being the equal and one grounding point for and as self, to start living the self-change of equality and oneness practically. And two, within this process, live heaven into and as earth, which is the process of establishing, creating, and manifesting the actual, real heaven on and in this earth, where all live, exist, experience, and share themselves in and as equality and oneness, and all are in fact what's best for all. Now, with us having determined that we're in fact the point, the source, to change ourselves and all, we thus have the ability, we thus have the responsibility to change ourselves within and as this point of birth, life, and death that has become our primary enslavement in the system of ourselves internally and externally. So let us have a look at what birth, life, and death is at this stage in this process, from within and as all dimensions. Alright. When you die at this stage, you end. It's done. You exist no more. Manifested consequence. Each human being literally has this one life, and this one life only in this physical reality, to stop, change, and stand up. And that's it. The same point is what we faced within our interdimensional process. Each, in essence, had one opportunity as we walked through our individual lives within the interdimensional existence. And if you fell, and this was always deliberate within the process, it was done. The opportunity was gone. So our whole interdimensional process was, in essence, our whole one life. And if you didn't make it, you were done, gone, finished, do not exist anymore. So falling is in fact deliberate. It's a decision you make, and the more specific you become within your process, you'll in fact realize that the moment before falling was in fact actually a decision. You made the decision to fall. Once you in fact see, realize, and understand this, start making the decision to stand and live and stick to it. Stand as it, be it in fact. And so you stand. The decision, the point is always self, me, here. Obviously, here on earth, you're fortunate. When you fall, you simply stand back up again. This is the gift of time and space, of each moment as breath. You always have breath. Well, as long as you're alive, in the physical, of course. To assert your self-decision, stand and walk. Obviously, if you accept and allow yourself to just fall, it becomes harder, more difficult, and you accept and allow time to go by that you could have instead used or utilized to build your self-confidence in standing, stopping, and changing self. And when one deliberately fall, without standing up, stopping, and changing, one fall into the mind further and further and manifest oneself into an actual physical process where the physical then take over in a way and lead you through a physical mind experiences in reality to assist and support in walking you out of your heaven as the mind back into reality and as earth. So this point of the process of each one in the physical that will be faced in taking self-responsibility for one's individual self and process will be discussed within the next interview to come, which is included in the giving perspective of and explaining the process of inversion. So in terms of death, in relation to self and process, to stand equal to and one with death is the point of standing within and taking the directive principle of stopping and ending that part of self as the mind. That will be like a death because it is only alive or kept alive as you by and through energy that the mind consciousness system is dependent on, and generates through reactions and extractions from the physical natural resources. So you'll end as that existent part of you and will re-emerge and change at the same time, because that part of self as the mind cannot exist in what is real here as the physical. And so self will in fact change through stopping self as the mind and changing one's living to practicality here in the physical within the principle that is best for all, equal and one. And so that part of self as the mind will and can be no more, and so will end. Yet, obviously, as I mentioned before, everything we need required to change ourselves as this world is already here. And this includes the mind. The mind exists as parts of ourselves. We've separated ourselves into and as a system. And it is those or such parts we must stand equal to and one with to stop, change and stand up from the accepted and allowed separation into systems, and in fact birth ourselves as life from the physical. So the mind is not the enemy. It is the inner me that must be faced, stopped and changed and stood up from as taking self-responsibility for and as all of self, within and without, to in fact stand eternal. Therefore, the ability to realize one's potential is in fact in one's own hands. And one can be the directive principle of one's own death, or be directed towards death by oneself. On the one hand, one emerge or birth oneself through death, and on the other hand, one end, cease to exist eternally. The decision, the point, is in fact self. So death no more has to be a point of waiting for the inevitable through accepting and allowing self to be subject to and enslaved in a system of mind and world. We can in fact change our destination in joining and walking with the destiny nation, in manifesting a one and equal existence, changing the destiny of not only self but this entire existence, which is what we're practically actually walking and establishing through and as destiny. So here, one has the ability to take one's own death in one's own hands and start walking the process of ending the mind as heaven and birthing self in the physical that is real, and walking the process of establishing the real actual heaven on earth as manifested equality and oneness. Now, in terms of life, in relation to self and process, this entire process will be discussed in more detail within the inversion process interview. However, to give an overview in relation to the context of this interview and how one in fact is and has the power, ability and capacity to change one's life experience in this world in relation to self and one's environment at this stage, is in realizing, seeing and understanding how, in fact, one is creating and manifesting one's own internal and external experience through and as the mind, conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. In terms of physical manifested events and occurrences that appear, one create, design, and manifest through the subconscious and unconscious. And in terms of internal experiences, one creates through the conscious mind, We're in fact the creators, designers, and manifestors of ourselves internally and externally. Those currently walking the Destiny I process see, realize, and understand this more and more as a total existence open up as self, and self reveal this total existence as self to self in absolute, complete, total, full exposure in how we're in fact meticulously shaping, molding, and forming every moment of what we experience and live out in ourselves and our world and our reality. And so, see, realize, and understand more clearly and intimately how to face the fear of responsibility and actually take it by the balls and twist self into awakeness through pain. To start coming to terms with what we've done and become, which is a process of pain, because we've done a lot that we've suppressed and hidden. But there comes a time, a moment when and where you can't hide anymore. Then that closet full of shit is packed to the brim, and the door bursts open and all the shit comes streaming out. So we suggest, rather than waiting for the accumulated shit to explode within self and one's world and reality, possess self and lead to behaviors or actions of manifested consequence in and as regret of losing total control of self suddenly and unexpectedly, realize, see, and understand that you're the point, the power to stop, stand up, and change, and start facing responsibility of self and one's world and reality, and start the process of taking directive principle within self and one's world. And doing so in a principle that's best for all, equal and one. The practical tools are here: self-honesty, self-forgiveness, writing, communication, self-corrective application, breath. Everything's already here. Self is the point that must emerge, take control, and direct. You're the only one waiting for you. So here, how one can in fact change one's life experience in this world, in terms of self and one's own world and reality, and no longer have to accept and allow oneself to be subject to and enslaved in the mind consciousness system. The mind as a conglomerate of parts of self from parents, others, and the environment that self cannot even remember or recollect, creating, manifesting, designing, and programming, that is currently running self and one's life in the background through the subconscious and unconscious, and continuing to cycle through participation in the conscious mind. I mean, this should be and is quite frightening. Thus, suggest assisting and supporting self in being, becoming, and living self-awareness, to in fact be self-aware with each breath in the precision and detail of specificity that self exists and live as everything that is here as self, in, as, and through the physical. Then, in terms of taking directive principle of, within, and as the life of all of humanity, which will determine the life of oneself in this world as a whole, is walking within establishing an equal money system. Obviously, changing the interdimensional existence as the heaven was a lot easier in removing the primary factor of an as energy manifested as God, as the white light, to bring about change and awareness within the existence as a whole. It is not going to be as easy in this world of humanity and changing humanity and this physical manifested existence. I mean, it's going to be relatively easy from an internal perspective for each human being as you walk your process in removing and ending God as the mind of and as energy. Yet, in terms of God as the world system of and as money, will have to be approached differently, as it cannot just be removed. We've integrated and automated ourselves into, as, and within the world system as a functioning humanity to such an extent that money will be used to change the world. Again, everything is already here, and money is the one point in changing the world system. in how we as a humanity function together practically in and as this world. And through an equal money system, we establish an equal in one world system, where all humans, animals, nature, the earth is in fact cared for and taken care of equal in one. So, in terms of changing the life of self and this world, is in each individual's hands. And Destiny is a support base to see this through. Within the Destiny I process, in changing self in one's process of birth, life and death, and Equal Money system in changing the world in the process and experience of birth, life and death. Self is the point, the power, the source that can change self and this world in birth, life and death. So now that we've looked at the responsibility that stand within ourselves in relation to our own process and experience within death and life, we now have a look at our responsibility within the process and experience of birth in relation to self and process. Obviously, birth is thus also in the hands of an as self in rebirthing self through the physical. You're responsible for your own death and so also your own rebirth within yourself and your world and reality. And this process of rebirth stands within living, applying and participating in the tools and methods as well as opportunities presented within Destiny that is here and available. Practicalities of walking, self-forgiveness, self-honesty, breath, self-corrective application, blogging, flogging, the Destiny I process, the Equal Money system. Everything's here to change self and this world equal in one. Self must simply take a breath as a step and walk with and continue to walk breath by breath and step by step until this is done for self and for all. So with beings ending at death, what is emerging or coming through as the birth of babies or children at this stage? This is manifesting as follows. What is emerging as a child or children in the development within the mother's womb is the manifestation of and from this physical reality as the world system, as what it exists as, that are manifest as the child's unconscious, the family lineage as the child's subconscious, and the parents' processes as the child's conscious. So, the child as manifestation that emerge is in fact equal to and one with all of self as the parents, from existence to the world to self alone. All parts of self manifested here into and as one being, as an actual manifested reflection of and as self, as what self exists as, equal in one. So the being that will emerge will be entirely and completely the parent-to-parent's responsibility, as they'll walk a process with this child, as a manifested reflection of and as who they are, in all aspects of self, within self, one's world, and the world as a whole. And so children are and will in fact be the manifested consequence and also the gift of an as self. See, the children are literally in fact the future, is in fact the continuation of ourselves. And so through children as ourselves, we in fact have the opportunity to change this existence. Therefore, in walking with oneself as the child is to see, realize and understand that you're assisting and supporting you as the child in walking through and facing this internal and external reality as self. And at the same time to assist, support and guide in living a principle that's best for all, equal and one. In manifesting, creating and establishing a world that is best for all, equal and one. Obviously, this all starts with self first, and we've got a way to go to prepare this world into a reality that actually assists and support all children equal and one. To have an opportunity to walk their process and in fact live the change into this world. We start this with ourselves, in preparing ourselves to prepare others. And with an equal money system, in having equal money from birth to death, so that we can start focusing on living and changing and manifesting this reality into a world of dignity, integrity, and respect for all, equal and one. I will, within an additional video interview, specify the structural manifestation and design, as well as manifest the dynamics involved within this physical manifested point of birth, and how it in fact practically manifests, and how we in fact created, designed, and manifested it as ourselves. The eternal enslavement of beings through cycling through reincarnation has stopped. And within the internalization and inversion of all processes of existence, we now walk into and as our own manifested consequence. And so children being born is no more beings enslaved to the cycle of reincarnation, in cycling through lives in pain, suffering, and enslavement, but actually the birth of ourselves as what we currently consist of and exist as within ourselves, our world and reality, and this world as a whole, so that we have the opportunity to in fact change ourselves through and as the children, in creating, manifesting, and establishing a reality that stands eternal within and as what is best for all. See, birth, life, and death is us. We're responsible for ourselves within birth, life, and death, and for the world as ourselves in birth, life, and death. Time to make the decision within this breath that you breathe, and in this moment walk with, to change self and this world as self. Stop hiding from responsibility and fearing change. Take responsibility and live change. Time to come out wherever you are, and see, realize, and understand for yourself the potential that is here, but a breath away. Stop wasting time as breaths. Start walking, start changing, and start living for a better world for self and for all. Thanks.